Hello everyone, this is Couple over here at A Couple Books. Today I wanted to tell you guys my top 10 favorite fantasy series. A little disclaimer though, not all these series are complete in their entirety. Some of them still have a few more books to go. Majority of them are complete, and as well, for majority of the series, one or two books in the series may be weaker than you would expect if it's my favorite series of all time, but I am judging this based off of the entire series and what has happened so far in the book. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's start off with my number 10 pick. This is Lev Grossman's The Magician's Trilogy. When it was described to me, it was described as a combination of Harry Potter with Narnia and college. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. It was such a fun journey. Some of the kids are annoying. If you've watched the sci-fi TV show, don't base off of that, okay? The books are worth getting into. They're very good. The author does an amazing job of bringing forth complex characters that you don't typically see across a lot of different genres. On top of his complex characters, he merges a lot of really fun, different fantastical elements together. As I said before, the Narnia thing is definitely here with it being called Fillory in this series. The whole grad school student atmosphere versus the whole Hogwarts high school atmosphere is very fun. It's kind of nostalgic to a certain degree. An amazing series, one of my favorites, and this is my number 10 pick. My number 9th is the Wayward Pines series by Blake Crouch. This is fantasy sci-fi. I would give it both. You more commonly see it being classified in the sci-fi section, but we're gonna cheat. But this is probably my number 9 pick in terms of favorite series of all time. This series is so much fun. It's so fantastical. It combines some of my favorite elements and stories, such as a small town mystery, such as a deja vu, waking up in the hospital not knowing what's going on. It plays on all these tropes, but I felt like this one did it so well. It was so good, and the plot twists at the end of each book are insane. There's 3 in this series. It was just so much fun getting into the series, and I constantly revisit it. Blake Crouch is an amazing author. He's written a lot of other books that I have read, and he is a great thriller writer, a great sci-fi author. Absolute fantastical series if you're into small town mysteries. My number 8 pick on this list is the Rivers of London series by Ben Aaronovitch. This series is urban fantasy in London at its finest. So much fun, so much fun. I know I keep saying that, but this is just another excellent series where you're seeing magical realism being applied, and instead of it being done in the typical US city, this is being done in London. So I feel like I'm learning a lot of London geography while reading this book, and for any of those Londoners out there or people native to the UK, you could probably even appreciate his descriptors even more so. But a really fun series about a cop who ends up getting recruited to work a small division within the police department where they deal with magic, because every police department probably has that. At least I hope so. Another great, absolutely fantastical series. Highly recommend checking it out. The Rivers of London by Ben Aaronovitch. My number 7 pick is Theft of Swords by Micheal J Sullivan. Micheal J Sullivan is a very prolific writer. He's got a lot of books out there right now. I would have to say majority of them are fantastic and highly recommendable books, and I really did appreciate what he did in this series with the 2 main guys. Basically, it follows over a course of 3 books these 2 characters, Hadrian and Royce, as they deal with different jobs together. One is a trained knight and the other one is a trained assassin, and just kind of watching them banter back and forth and work their way through not only their own relationship issues but their job issues as they arise. The buddy cop bromance going on in this series is so much fun and really just brings a smile to your face, and it's a great journey to have, and it's fun to be the third person in the carriage when Royce and Hadrian are going back and forth with each other and arguing over something that most of us would probably consider unimportant and insignificant. My 6th series is going to be not much of a surprise for y'all. This series is the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, the first one being Stormfront. There are over 15 books in this series now. It's insane. I just am about to read Battleground, which is his newest addition to the series. It has changed so much. His tone, his character, his story, it has changed and gone through so much evolution. Feels like you're along for the ride, truly and entirely. With this series, you're really seeing Harry Dresden, the main character, who is the wizard, change and become a better person in some ways and a worse person in other ways. And it's not so clean cut, good guys versus bad guys. You're seeing a lot of different things going on. You're seeing a lot of real internal conflict happening within the main character, and it's fun to be along for the ride while there's a character you can actually relate to going through some of the challenges that you would find in normal life, except in this book it's happening in Chicago. Of course, this Chicago is plagued with monsters, demons, vampires, etc., etc., etc. My fifth favorite series, the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Oopsie. This series is grimdark where grimdark is best. He does a fantastic job of bringing grimdark elements to the page, and wowzer, like, you really want to hate these characters in this book because they're just, most of them are just awful people. There's very few redeeming qualities to any of the main characters, and yet somehow you'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you're rooting for one of the characters and you're like, what is going on? I'm supposed to hate you. You're a horrible person. But you just can't help rooting for them to a certain degree. Joe Abercrombie is the king of grimdark at the moment in the fantasy world. He is worthy of that title due to this series. You cannot be more lucky than to experience what it actually means to be a gray character in a fantasy world. You think Snape is gray in Harry Potter? Take a look at this series. I don't know if you can get grayer than this. My number fourth series in my top 10 is the Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher. I know I'm a little cheating here with two Jim Butchers, but that's okay because it's going to happen again later on with Brandon Sanderson, so don't you worry. I read somewhere that he was challenged to combine Roman military with Pokemon, and he did it. This is Roman military with Pokemon. Doesn't seem like it should work. It works fantastically. Tavi's journey as he goes from a kid with no Pokemon. Of course, in this series, the Pokemon are known as Furies, and they're associated with the elements, but wow, like, I have never wanted so badly to live in the time of Roman conquest than I did in this book, because who doesn't want a Pokemon? Who doesn't want Pikachu? This series is so much fun. You're seeing, this is a great coming of age story. You're seeing the character go from a little kid with no Furies to what he becomes later on in the series. What a wild ride, and I honestly could not have expected more or better from Jim Butcher. My third in my top 10 is Hunted by Kevin Hearne. The third in the series is Hounded by Kevin Hearne. This is Shattered by Kevin Hearne. Yes, I know, they're not the same, but this is in the series. It's just later on, so don't worry. I'm holding it up for your reference, not for my reference. I know what's happening. This is an absolutely fantastical urban fantasy series, and what I love about it so much is that I feel like a lot of the time when you read about gods or demigods, it's usually Greek-Roman. This incorporates the Irish folklore and Irish mythology is so much fun to get into and so much fun to read about, and Druid magic is so unique and so different just because I've grown up and read Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, and that is what I'm familiar with. So this kind of mythology and magic system is so new and so refreshing and so much fun. It revitalized for me mythology-based urban fantasy, and wow, like, really enjoyed it immensely. Loved being there along with him as he learned more about his powers. Almost said a spoiler. Don't worry, though. I caught myself. The second one of my top 10 is going to be The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This series is... there's no words. There's no words. This has some of the best character work I've ever seen, except for my number one pick, which you will find out shortly. I'll give you a hint. It's also Brandon Sanderson. This series made me love adult high fantasy again, and it incorporates some of my favorite elements of some of my favorite things, such as heist movies, military planning, fight scenes, political conquest. Like, this series covers some of the best things that books and movies have to offer in terms of entertainment, and he puts it all into one world, and it's so much fun. And while you're there and you're following this character, the main character being Vin, and you're following her through her own self-development story, you are learning so much about the world, and it just feels so natural, and you start to forget that you're reading a novel, and instead at some moments you start to feel like you're reading a really interesting, well done historical fiction piece, even though it's not even set in our world. So an absolutely amazing series. Now it's time for my number one pick. It's hiding down here. You can probably see it. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. It's not there. But an honorable mention that I must mention is going to be The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. The reason I can't put it in here is because we will probably never see the third in that series. But that's fine. I really enjoyed Name of the Wind and A Wise Man's Fear. Those are great books. Can't wait for the third one whenever it comes out. My number one pick for my top favorite fantasy series of all time at the moment is the Way of Kings Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. This has placed the crown of fantasy on Brandon Sanderson's head, and it was not placed lightly. He is imagining and redeveloping the fantasy genre as we know it. We are literally walking the path with Brandon as he reshapes the genre as a whole, and this series is his, so far, capital number one effort in that regard. The characters in this are so different and unique, and you see them doing just such interesting things, and somehow it's all making sense and rationalized to a certain degree, and the plotting makes sense and everything makes sense, and you'll be reading a chapter and then 2 books down you'll be like, I see it, there it is, and you see everything come to fruition to some point. By reading his books, you've developed such a faith in him that you know that everything you pick up on is going to pay off later down the road. That's what makes reading his Stormlight Archive series so much fun. Hey guys, so that is my top 10 favorite book series to date at the moment. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Couple at A Couple Books. Please subscribe and like down below, and comment with any ridiculing and or roasting comments taking priority, followed up by nice and pleasant ones. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a good day. Bye.